question is, all those examples that you showed, mostly were church in North Carolina or some house in California and so on. Are there any residential dwellings in Sydney where this is being used? So
there's one being installed next week in Paddington.
Paddington.
It's very new. This is new technology. You guys are like at the point when they released microwave ovens. Okay? Everyone's been cooking in a stove all their life and they're going, what's this microwave oven? It's the same thing. It's now available. You can buy it. Everyone's wanted phase change for a long time, and now you can buy it off the shelf. And that's why there aren't many test cases in Australia yet. Hasn't been here long enough.
You can tell us something about the dollar,
The cost? It's all on the website, the costing, and there's a calculator on there that starts at $43 per square metre.
Okay.
That's the retail price to an end user customer. If a builder has to buy it, he gets a bit of a discount, so you never pay more than that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you explain when you would use the different materials? Like, why would a material that melts and freezes at 27 degrees be useful?
Where do you live?
In Sydney.
What's the weather like here?
Well, typically it's in the 20s.
Okay, so what about if you lived in Townsville? You mightn't get a night refreeze. You see, so if you have a material that refreezes at a different point, you can refreeze it passively. So it depends if you're having an active design or a passive design, and it depends on what temperature you want the room to be. There's a bit of a sweet spot.
It's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, yeah.
In Townsville, you're happy for 27 because at least it freezes.
Because at least it's only 25 in the middle of the day when everyone else's house is 35. Yeah.
Whereas here we would normally use the orange one.
Yeah, well, it depends what you like. If you use the 23 degree product, it needs to get down to 18 degrees to reset, which means less days per year it'll passively reset. And also it depends on where you're putting it. If you're having it in a bedroom, you might like it cooler. I like it cooler in the bedroom but warmer in the living room. So you can put 23 in the bedroom, 25 in the living room, and maybe use an air conditioner in the middle of summer to pre-freeze the bedroom before you go to bed, a small 1 kilowatt unit that you might already have there. So there's 100 combinations of it. The big question is, what's the comfort band you like? Because it spends most of its time in that band between 18 and 23. The sweet spot on that one is 20.5. That's where it likes to be. If you like that temperature, go 23. But remember, it's got to refreeze itself with a night air. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I noticed on that sample that's going around, it's moist because it's cold and it's condensing, it's got condensation on the surface. So what happens if it starts like dripping water onto your ceiling tiles and stuff?
It's unusual because that's actually very cold and it's been put into a hot environment. So it's just the water's just beating on the outside because it's at dew point. So it's a good question, but in a normal environment, the building temperature would be adjusting at the same rate as the phase change material because the room would be getting hotter and the material would be resisting it. So there wouldn't be a differential there. It would only be if you took it outside and froze it overnight. We thought about this, the pensioner's heater. You could take it outside at night, cool it off and bring it inside and put it over your legs in the summertime. Be a low-cost air conditioner. But yeah, that's the reason. Go ahead, sir.
Given that this kind of material only change between this certain degree, so if we got enough budget, and is that correct? The more we put in to
the more you put in, the more inertia you get. Exactly. The longer it carries it for. At my place, I've got the M51, which is the middle weight, middle temperature in the upstairs ceiling, and for 7 months we haven't used an air conditioner or a heater. Not once. Don't need it because there's enough cold in the night to release just by opening windows, and there's enough heat in the day to charge to keep it warm at night. So just by managing those two things, you can actually get rid of a lot of heating and cooling loads that you'd normally pay for. Wake up in the morning, the kids aren't freezing in their bed anymore because the material's releasing heat all night. So it's much more pleasant to be in the home, and there's no wind and there's no noise and dry air.
I was thinking about it, we've mainly been discussing from a cooling point of view. That was the warming point of view. If you're using it for warming and you've got a timber floor, can you install it under the floor? Would it work quite well there?
It's a good question. The question is based around the idea of why don't we put more thermal mass in the floor, because that's what we've always believed. Thermal mass goes well in a floor if it's concrete because it's heavy, and the reason for that is it's too expensive to put it above us. The right place for it's above us. It's never been put there because it's always weighed too much.
And if heat's trying to rise all the time, like if you've got a fairly high ceiling, because Renew magazine a couple of issues ago was quite critical of the heated ceiling concept. So,
but remember, this doesn't have any thermal property above 25, and it's resisting the room getting warm all the way up there.
Yeah.
So if you had
about in a weaker point of view, and you're wanting some warmth retained in the room, wouldn't it be better to have it down lower rather than up high?
Yeah, but the warmth will come upwards anyway. So what we find at our place is that if you close the curtains and the ceiling is charged, like we've got one of those Canara fireplaces, throw some logs in that, warms us up while we're watching TV, go to bed, fire goes out, and we wake up in the morning, the house is still warm because the curtains are drawn and the ceiling is warm and the insulation's above it, so there's nowhere for the heat to go. So it just slowly passes through the insulation. So it's quite simple to keep your house at 19, 20 degrees by the time it gets to morning, just using a fireplace in the worst part of winter. And you can do the same with a reverse cycle heat pump. You could preheat the house during the day in the middle of winter using your solar panels running your aircon directly, pre-warm the house to 23, sun goes down, turn off your aircon, means you haven't used any carbon-based electricity, and you go to bed and your house is just slowly refreezing, and while it's doing that, it's releasing the heat.
I recall about 25 years ago in commercial
It's a long time ago.
air conditioning, they trialled phase change material ice balls, they were called,
Yes.
at Darling Harbour.
Right.
In the
Okay.
new constructions down there. And they were notoriously unsuccessful.
Yes.
I can't recall.
The reason was the material degraded over time. That was the dilemma. The material, it worked brilliantly,
Yeah.
but it failed.
So are we talking, was it glycol or something inside the
I think they used salt-based products. I think it was potassium chloride salt with...
ate the plastic?
I don't know what the reason was that it failed, but it was supposed to last 10 years and it lasted 1 or 2 years. So the product got a bad name because the material didn't work, which is why they went to the trouble. The people who developed this in the US have been developing blood transport products and food transport products for 30 years. And they want to keep the blood at 4 degrees while they transport it. So they had to find ways to encapsulate the material so it didn't break down, and the right materials that they lasted a really long time.
I detect that 4 degrees is beer temperature.
Beer temperature too, yes.
we
But
have to say that
ice
we-
is better to cool beer down because it's twice the thermal mass.
So could you use this material inside commercial?
Yeah, there's so many applications. I had a guy the other day, he goes, "This is what I need." And I said, "Why?" He says, "I've got a welder and he's diabetic. And he's working in the hot tin shed and it's too hot for him. He has to keep coming in and sitting in the air-conditioned office to have a half-hour timeout. I can make a jacket out of it and put it in the fridge and make him keep working." Same thing in a mining shed. Like the guys who work on those huge trucks with the big wheels, they're out there working in 40-degree days. If that truck's off the road for an hour, it costs the company $10,000 or more, probably. If you guys can work because they've got a phase change jacket, they can work right through the day for the cost of some material in a fridge. Go on.
Is this one UV stabilized?
UV stabilised? No. No, it'll eventually break down in sunlight. It's not supposed to go outside. So just one. You've got 2 questions. Go on.
Talking about floors, I mean, most houses, new houses now have double story.
Yes.
The upper floor is lightweight,
Yep.
which if planned properly can get them into sun.
Yeah, you can do that. It's a great place.
So easy to maintain.
Yep, and you just use some Tek screws and screw it up into the floorboard or staple it into the timber. And you can do it on a new build, but often you can't get in there on an existing home. So on a new build, then it's a good place in the ceiling of the floor below because it gives the building thermal stability and it's all tucked away nicely in the insulation envelope.
And just on what you
Yep.
mentioned, just on longevity, you mentioned an 85-year design life. What sort of warranty?
We give it a 7-year warranty. Yeah. The plastic itself there's 14 different layers of plastic in there to encapsulate the vegetable fat. And there's a fire retardant to stop it burning and a gelling agent to try and keep it together in a putty when it melts. It's not toxic, you can burn it, it just releases carbon dioxide gas. The plastic itself melts away fairly quickly because it's got no real thermal energy in there. But the material itself actually tries to put fires out, so it has a negative effect on fires. Go on, sir.
Are builders finding any practical problems, like if there's penetration through that, you can have leaks?
Yeah, we've had one case where somebody got a leak in the product. When he was installing it, he was not careful with his scissors and cut one of the pouches open. So it can happen, but the downside of having to repair a small patch versus the upside of having a house with no power bills is a pretty good trade-off.
What happens with, does it leak out or?
No, it explodes. No, it doesn't really. It's a vegetable fat. So if it got onto plasterboard, it would soak through and maybe make the paint peel a bit.
So could you just tape it up with some?
Yeah, just cut it out and replaster it.
Yeah,
If
but
it's-
if you've got a hole in it, can you just?
No, you just cut that square out
Just cut it out?
and just chuck it away. Yeah, it's only one little,
I was just thinking about that heavy one you had before that.
the big one. Yeah.
16. If you've got a leak in something like that, could you patch it in any way? Or just
You probably could. Like, it doesn't really perish over time. It's just vegetable fat. Like olive oil, I mean, that lasts for a long time. Yeah. But you're better to cut it out if you do damage it. Go on, Matt.
I think I know the answer to this, but if you're in a house, an old house with wooden floors, main thing you want to do is heat the house in winter rather than cool it in summer.
Yep.
Would it be any help to put it underneath the floorboards?
I don't think so. I think it's easier to put in the ceiling. It's much faster.
Yeah, but the heat doesn't come down.
Put a ceiling fan in. Yeah, just stir up the air. So you let the heat from, you've got a fireplace, have you?
This is in a bedroom. So
Okay, well, if you have a heater going in there in the middle of winter, then it'll charge the ceiling and then the ceiling will stay warm. As long as it's insulated above, the heat will have no choice but to warm the room. Yep. Go on, mate.
Is there heavyweight stuff like the 0 to 16 thing you were showing me? Like the 16
Yeah, that's the heaviest one. That's actually not on the brochure. That's a new addition to the family. My wife had a baby last week too. New addition to the family. There's a column that's not there, which is M182. That's M91 on the right column. So M182 is double all those values.
So was that like 10 kilograms per square metre?
10 kilograms per square metre, exactly right, yep. And then you can choose temperature ranges. The ones that we have standard are 23, 25, 27, but we also have anything else you can imagine. We've got 16 degree, 4 degree, 37, 42, 49, 67. So you could do a thermal storage tank for a hot water unit. Imagine this, 50 litres of phase change material in a stainless steel tank with a copper coil around the outside. That's equivalent to 500 litres of hot water. So you could bolt your hot water tank to the wall. Really good for when you've got a small building envelope to work with. So a lot of things phase change can do if you just think about it.
Just a third question.
Yeah.
I just wondered, has any life cycle assessment been done on this, comparing it to air conditioning running costs or anything like that? And its manufacturing embodied energy and everything?
Well, there's not very much embodied energy because we have to grow the vegetable fat, so it's much better on that side. As far as how many kilowatt hours per year is saved, it depends on how well designed the building is and how much air conditioning you're offsetting. So that's why we say anything from 6 months to 5 years is a typical financial payback, which is probably also a carbon payback.
You have a 7-year guarantee on it.
Yes.
Now, is the melt and freeze process fully reversible? Does it lose its ability?
No. 85. It's tested to 85 years with one melt cycle, one freeze cycle per day through an accelerated test facility. So heated it, melted it, lost no mass, lost no performance over 85 years. They gave up. They said, that's enough. So we don't know what will happen after that, but I'm okay with that.
I'd like to take the opportunity from the floor to ask a question myself.
Go ahead.
And then I'll ask, I'd like to ask a question myself and then I'll ask David to close.
Yep.
One question is, since we can put it in walls and we can have it on roofs, is there any research to show what I heard was related to people's feeling of comfort, which is it tends to be a perceived heat thing.
Yeah.
So like if you're moving in a volume, you've got air that moves past you and stuff, but part of your perception of the comfort is related to the apparent infrared or ambient temperature of the wall and roof.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the exact temperature you're
That's right.
experiencing at the time.
They call it, or some people call it skin effect, where the temperature of the wall affects how you feel. Like if you walk into a wine cellar, besides the fact that there's all that nice wine there and it's great to be in there, the temperature of the wall is cool and you feel cool because the wall actually pulls the heat out of you. Well, like sitting beside a glass window, most windows are glass, but sitting beside a window when it's cold outside, you feel cold because of the actual solid material there. And that's why putting it on the ceiling is really good.
I'm sure we actually want to leave at this point, because some of you who want to leave. I'd like everybody to put their hands together for Paul for such an excellent presentation.